In our culture, I think, like we talked another time about Halloween, the same is true with Christmas, is you have to navigate your own way and be okay at the end of it. Your adult child might say, why'd you all lie about Santa Claus? Ha, 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 vis-a-vis saying, we told you it was pretend and it's okay.
This is Ask Dr. E, where Dr. Michael Easley answers your biblical or theological questions in 10 minutes or less. Today's question is, what do you think about Christian families raising their kids to believe in Santa?
So I'll lead. I won't bury the lead on this one. I'll just say we didn't. We told you all Santa was pretend, and people were going to talk about Santa, but we were going to focus on Jesus Christ. Mm-hmm. And we didn't make a big deal about it. It was matter of fact. Now, we did get in trouble later with, I think it was Jessie. I'm not sure. She could probably defend herself. I think she told some other kid, there's no such thing as Santa.
I told some kid in kindergarten.
He's pretend.
Yeah,
and then you get some repercussions and blowback. But I would rather have that than have you two or you four growing up with this, it's not the make-believe, it's that it's not true. Christmas is not about Santa Claus. Christmas is about the birth of Christ. For the believer, it's about the birth of Christ, born to die that man might live. And this is where I do think the local church and Christmas programs are so helpful, because you can still enjoy the festive part, the gift giving, all that stuff. We also tried with you guys, and I don't know how well we succeeded, to make Christmas about others and to do things for other people. One church I served had a fabulous program was called Less Under Our Tree, More for the World, Less Under Our Tree. They still do that. It's a fabulous program, and kids become accustomed to that each year. What are we going to do for those in the global ministry, the mission ministry? Yeah. And we're going to. Some family set a budget. We're going to this year, if Christmas is this much, 10% or 15% is going to go to global, and let the kids get involved that early on, because it's about giving.
Yeah, I like
those are good. Those are good principles in general.
Yeah.
Besides the birth event or the Santa event or the coming down the tree. Mm-hmm. But I would just say, matter-of-factly as possible, our family knows Santa is pretend. Yeah. It's fun. It's like the Easter Bunny. Yeah. I'm not talking theologically. It's fun. You get a chocolate bunny and you eat it. Big deal. Santa Claus on the tree. Big deal. It's fun. Don't overwork it. But also say, we don't talk about this to other people. Because other people's parents, they think Santa is real. They tell their children it's real. I'd rather you grow up and know my parents didn't deceive me or fake me out or trick me in some way. My father, till his dying years, wrote from Santa in pencil on the thing. And I always knew it was his handwriting as a kid.
Yes.
That's from Santa. What was the point? But, I mean, you guys have to wrestle through it because you got young children.
Well, my husband loves Santa, as we've called him the Christmas monster. But he, believing in Santa and the story of Santa is very important in his family. And, I mean, they love the Lord. They are a strong Christian family. But, I mean, truly, up until we relocated my husband's parents to be closer to us a few years ago. But prior to then, everyone would go home to Wisconsin. And on Christmas Eve, this started when Tyler was a young boy. On Christmas Eve, a hired Santa would come to the house. Now, there was a huge trash bag in the front door. And as all the aunts and uncles, because it was a big, extended family gathering on the 24th, they would drop presents out of the sight of their children into this garbage bag that had their names on them. So, I would drop Isaac, Easley, and Pax and whatever. So when Santa got to the house, he would take that trash bag, put it in his red, velvet bag, and come into the house, ho, ho, ho. And Santa literally came to my in-laws' house, and he would sit down and he would pull, Tyler, and Tyler would have to come and sit on his lap.
Each kid?
And he would talk to Tyler, and he would give him this little present.
Oh, my.
And, I mean, so it's a really big deal. And for my in-laws and for Tyler, they would say it's magical. It's so magical. And I actually pulled up Barbara Rainey's blog post because I love Barbara and I like to consult her thoughts on lots of things. And this was one that she and I talked about. When Tyler and I were engaged to be married, Santa was one of our biggest disagreements.
Interesting.
And because he felt very strongly about Santa. And I was like, I never believed in Santa. Why would I lie to my children? And I can hear people listening to this going like, you're not. John Deloney, someone that we love and is a friend, will say, never lie to your kids, but Santa's not lying, So I hear Deloney in the back of my head saying, it's not lying. Tell your kids Santa.
John, we need to talk. We need to talk, John.
But all that, Tyler, I was like, I cannot fathom raising kids to believe in Santa because I didn't have that modeled. And for me, it was a competition. What is a better story for a kid about Christmas? This big fat man that magically comes down your chimney and brings you gifts, or the, God coming to earth as a baby and being born in a manger? Like, this is a better, sorry, Lord, like, this is a better story. This is more attractive to a 5-year-old than this. And this has direct implications on the 5-year-old where this doesn't feel like it does. I mean, so my thought, I'm like, I want Christmas to be about Christ. I don't want it to be about Christ and Santa. And that's what, my whole in-law family would say. It can be both, and I was like, I just, because that wasn't modeled for me, I don't see how it can be both. So anyway, but Barbara will say Santa is imagination, and it's where creativity comes from. And so, they raise those rainy kids to believe in Santa, when they're young. And she's 100%. So that's what I think is so interesting. There are very godly men and women, probably more that do Santa than don't do Santa. I have one great friend, and she's always like, yes, the No Santa Club with me. Like, we don't do that. Now, what I have done is we have a book about Saint Nick. And so we'll read that book, and we'll talk about how, Santa Claus and this myth has been, comes from the story of Saint Nick, who was a real person. And we talk about, who he was and what he did. But, my boys, I pretty clearly, because I think I promised Tyler, I said, listen, because we never really came to a resolution. Married for 10 years, we have 3 children, we've never really quite gotten there. But I said, I'm never going to tell our children the story of Santa and that he's real. Here's what's crazy. They will learn about Santa without you ever saying anything. It's
That's
just
true.
so in our face and in the world. And even like you put on like a little Mickey's Christmas Carol movie. Like Santa is in every child's television show. Anyway, so you have to block them from TVs, which, that's not a bad idea. Anyway, I promised I will never tell them he's real, but I will, if they ask me directly, I will say, that's what some people say.
So what when Isaac asked Cece and Saba, is Santa real? What are we supposed to say?
Well, here's what's funny. I finally told both boys point blank, Santa is a story. It's an imaginative, creative story. Just like Mickey Mouse is not real. Just like Spidey is not real. All these, and we love to play these things. You guys like to pretend that you're PJ Masks or Spidey and Ghost Spider and Miles, and like that's so fun. That's the story of Santa. It's just pretend. There's not a real man named Santa Claus that lives in the North Pole, la, la, la. But they will still, Jesse did this too, they still want to believe. So they'll be like, well, Luke and Judah told us that he is real. And I'd be like, well, you can trust Luke and Judah, you can trust me. That's your choice, And so they still kind of wrestle with it, like, Mom. And, but I tell them just over and over, I want Christmas to be about Jesus and be about the fact that God came to earth to save us, to dwell among us and to save us. And they'll be like, all right, but we're still going to get gifts from Santa, right?
Right. We're still getting presents. Well, it's like candy at Halloween. We're still getting candy, right?
Yeah. So I don't know. But again, I feel like if my husband ever listens to this, I need to make sure I really emphasize, it's about the creativity, it's imagination, all that's so important. My pushback is, can't we do that in other ways? I've seen, I did it one year, and then Christmas Eve is like so exhausting for parents. There's all this stuff you got to get the kids.
You bring it on yourself.
Which is
bringing it on yourself.
Like they don't want to go sleep, and then you got to get the presents out and put them under the tree and blah blah blah.
See, Tyler loves all that.
He does. I'm just tired. I'm tired thinking about it. Anyway, so one year I took all of their little plastic animals and maybe some of the stuffies, and I lined them from Isaac's room. I think Pax was alive too, but he was a baby. But I lined them going from Isaac's room all the way to our nativity scene, to the manger. And so that was like the magical thing I did. Like, all the animals are processing to see the king, the newborn king. And anyway, there's so many fun things nowadays that you can do. There's a follow the star thing where you move the star instead of Elf on the Shelf. You move the star around your house, and then they move the Magi. I guess do they go? You do move them to the star so that they're following the star.
The star on the bar.
Yeah, we can do different stuff. I just think about how Jesse and I would torture Mom by stealing baby Jesus out of the manger.
Yes,
She'd
you
be
did.
So mad at us.
Yes, you did. And yes, she was. So, and she probably is still bitter about that.
It's not like he was lost forever. She still has him.
Well, that actually happens, right? They rip off Jesus out of these outdoor creches all the time.
That is true. I never did that. Honestly, it's a surprise.
Well, we're glad you listened to this episode of Get Hannah Seymour's Opinion about Christmas.
That's rude.
Santa Claus. It was great. It was great because they need to hear from you in this situation because folks that have younger children, this is what it's about.
Yeah.
I mean, the grandparents are somewhat removed and we protect as best we can to say, it's what your parents teach you, you know? I think that's our role, so mom and dad. But it changes. You know, in our culture, I think, like we talked another time about Halloween, the same is true with Christmas, is you have to navigate your own way and be okay at the end of it. Your adult child might say, why'd you all lie about Santa Claus? Ha, 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 ha. John Delaney said it was okay.
Yeah.
Vis-a-vis saying, we told you it was pretend and it's okay.
Yeah.
It's a very different topic, but with adoption, we had the same approach. We just were matter of fact about it.
Yeah.
You're adopted.
Day one.
From day one, you're adopted. What did that mean when they were this, a baby for Jesse or 3 or 4 with our other kids? What did it mean? I don't know.
Right.
But the nomenclature set in.
Yeah.
And one could argue, it's pretend, but we're celebrating.
Yeah.
And that matter of fact nature is not this big, you lied to me, but it's, we're celebrating, it's pretend.
The final thing I'll say, since this is about my opinion on Christmas, is that I really came back to is, what does Christ think about this whole Santa thing? And that to me is like, again, it just feels like a competing story. What is Christmas about? What are we focusing on? What are we getting our kids excited about? I would rather jump through hoops to get them excited about the fact that God became man, born as a baby for them.
Born to die that man might live. And
than a fat man in a red suit that brings gifts that I paid for, by the way. Also, I have an issue with that. I'm like, no, Santa did not give you that. I gave you that.
He's Mrs. Claus then. Mrs. Claus.
I'm done.
But back to the, and I don't want to ever vilify the local church, but when they do a good program that involves, children's choirs and musicals and nativity setups and teach the story, that's, to me, the hope is that even with the gifts and what child doesn't wake up Christmas morning wide-eyed and want to get stockings and presents and the obligatory new bike at some point in their life? And that's fun. But it's incumbent on the parents to always bring it back. And as they get older, too, age appropriate, you have those opportunities to say, we love this. We love gift giving and gift receiving. But let's remember, the greatest gift ever given was Christ. And that's your job as a parent. Yeah. And by the time they're 6, 7, 8, they're going to start processing that. Yeah. And as they mature in their own, from critical thinking, abstract to concrete thinking, other way around, they're going to be able to say, and as the Lord works in their life, hopefully, said, this is about Christ in my life, not just presents and no school and food and all the things that go with it.
All right. If you've got a question for Dr. E, I promise to not try to talk as much next time.
I liked it.
You can call, text, or email us, and the info is in your show notes.